Hello collectors, and welcome to my review of NECA's San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Pacific Rim End Titles Jeager action figure 3-pack. Quite the mouthful there. This action figure set features 3 Jeagers, Gypsy Danger, Crimson Typhoon, and Striker Eureka, from Series 1 and 2, repainted in a high gloss black finish with glow-in-the-dark con pods. Limited to only 5,000 sets worldwide, this set is sure to be something every Pacific Rim fan would want, right? Well, sadly, probably not. Some will probably turn away and not have a second thought about it. Remember, folks, looks can be deceiving, so let's take a close look at this set and see whether or not it's worth adding into your collection. First up, the Cowboy, Gypsy Danger. With this paint scheme, it's going to be really hard to turn it down. Gypsy really does look fantastic with the gloss black paint scheme. And overall, none of the details are really lost. And the only spot with real paint application that can be messed up, well, is the con pod. And it does in fact look nice, though it's not entirely, say, crisp. Here's a nice close-up of it, and it looks a tad bit, say, slimy in hand. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because that's probably just how the glow-in-the-dark paint would be used, but it's just something that I noticed. You can see the texturing on the back, which still looks remarkable in this gloss black finish. Again, none of the details are lost. And here's a quick shot of the chest. The core looks nicely detailed, as usual. As I said before, this figure is a repaint of the Gypsy released in Series 2, the battle damage one, so the sculpt details are exactly the same. As is the articulation, sort of. All of the joints are there, but there's one key issue on mine which I'm afraid to really mess with because it may result in even more unpleasantness than it currently has, and that would be the head. Mine is not attached correct to the neck. So Gypsy can sort of look to one side, but I cannot really force it to look to another, to the right side, because the head is not attached onto the ball joint correctly, and I can, well, get my other Gypsy Dangers to look clearly in both directions. So the shoulders are on ball joints, as you know from the Gypsy Dangers previously released. The elbows are on hinges. They go about that far. The wrists are attached on ball joints, so you're going to get as much movement as you can. The torso area, the ab crunch, it's on a ball joint, which has considerable bend. You can really get Gypsy Danger to lean backwards. Hips are a swivel hinge combo, as you can see here. Knees are on hinges, and mine are really difficult to move. Yeah. Ankles, ball joints, fun. And the back part of the foot is on a hinge. Now, something that I absolutely cannot stress enough. This is a problem with all of the Jeagers in the set for me. All of the joints were really, really stiff out of the box. So make sure that you first wake up all of the joints by heating them up with a blow dryer or running them under hot water, so this way you don't really stress it and then eventually cause them to break. And here's the end title Gypsy Danger with the other Gypsy Dangers released. Series 1 on the right, Series 2 on the left. And as you can see, both of their heads can turn perfectly fine. On a final note, since this Gypsy Danger uses the Battle Damage Gypsy Danger mold, that means that the forearms, they have slots in them for the chain swords, but unfortunately, this Gypsy Danger does not come with them. So if you have a Battle Damage Gypsy Danger, and you want to display your end titles Gypsy Danger with the chain swords, you can go ahead and do that. The Thundercloud formation returns with Crimson Typhoon in this set. Again, using the Series 1 mold, but in a high gloss black paint job, Crimson is very bulky, yet sleek in design. And the black really helps bring this out. The glow-in-the-dark con pod isn't too noticeable, and it's hard to see in the dark, but this Jeager is a fantastic addition to this set. Despite being in such a small area, there's no slop with the con pod paint at all. That's very impressive for such a tight area. The detailings on Crimson, though small, are still present with this release, as you can clearly see here. One major issue with mine, though, is it has a really warped left leg, and you can see it here in comparison to my Series 1 Crimson Typhoon on the right. Going to the articulation, again, it's identical to the Crimson Typhoon you already have on your shelf. But before you start moving your Crimson Typhoon around, I highly suggest to actually wake up all of the joints first, because if you force something a little bit too hard, chances are you might snap something. And, well, that almost happened to me for quite a few joints, and I'm not exactly happy with that. But I'll explain that as I go along. To begin, the head of Crimson Typhoon is attached on the neck by a ball joint. So you can get lots of spinning, twisting and turning, rocking back and forth, everything you would expect. The big arm is attached to the shoulder on a ball joint, and at the elbow there is a hinge. For the plasma caster tip, I believe this is what it would be technically called, it is attached on a ball joint, so you can swivel it, you can rock it back and forth, whatever you would prefer to do. Now, for the two smaller arms on Crimson Typhoon, they are indeed ball joints. They have been since the Series 1 release. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. They are not swivels. You can move them around, but on mine, both of them were stuck initially, and all they would do is swivel. But after a little bit of convincing, I was able to actually get the full ball joint feature, and on this one, there's a stress mark on the actual bar that connects the ball joint to the shoulder area here into the inner part of the body. The elbows are on hinges for these smaller arms, and the hands are also on hinges too. Now, at the middle portion of the body where the torso is attached to the waist, there is a ball joint, but it's really difficult to move. The gloss black paint, or it might just be gloss, I'm not entirely too sure, it really doesn't do wonders for this set because a lot of the joints are stuck and it's very difficult to move. It's not smooth like the Series 1 or the second deployment Crimson Typhoon is. Next up, for the thighs, they're attached to the hips on ball joints, a barbell style, and they both sort of move freely, though this one on mine was stuck because the ball joint that is attached in the thigh, well, I'll actually show you. Let me just pop this off real quick since it was very easy to do for mine. The ball joint in here was actually stuck with a glob of paint, and I had to take a knife, go in there, scrape some of the paint off. I didn't pop the ball joint out at all because it wouldn't move. I had to cut around it, and unfortunately, as you can see there, there's a gray ring around that. Yeah, that would be a stress mark from me stretching the plastic too much, from trying to get the damn thing to actually move like it should. So again, I can't stress enough, make sure you properly wake up the joints with heat before you go moving everything around. And then from there down, it's exactly the same. You have hinges, which are kind of difficult to move because, again, I think maybe the paint might have something to do with that. At the knee here, at the shin area, the second knee, underneath that. And then the feet, as everyone knows, is unfortunately on a hinge still, not some sort of swivel combo or a ball joint, which is pretty sad. And for those of you needing a side-by-side comparison, here is the end titles Crimson Typhoon with the Series 1 Crimson Typhoon. Again, I really like the sleek black paint job for this particular Jeager, but caused quite a bit of problems in the articulation department, I think. Finally, the first and last of its kind, Striker Eureka. Again, a repaint of the Series 2 sculpt, Striker looks really great in the black paint. The vents and such look nice, and Striker looks very natural in black. As you can guess, the details found in the sculpt still look great. You can definitely see all of the small detailing. The con pod is about as good as it can be expected, though mine has just a little bit of paint on the head when it should all be contained to the visor. Here's a look at Striker's head, and you can see just a little bit of paint right up here, and then there's just a teeny tiny bit that can be found in the corner up there of the visor. It's not a major issue, and for the most part I can look over it, but something else I need to bring up about the head. Striker's got a very bad issue, but I'll tell you more about that later. Here's a great look at Striker's chest, a look at the back, and here's a good look at the legs. And with these, you're definitely going to be able to tell that the detailing is kept in this black variant of Striker Eureka. The articulation, again, is identical to the Series 2 Striker. There's one fatal issue with my Striker Eureka here, because this sculpt uses a ball joint for the neck, though really you're mostly just going to get a swivel out of it. And mine, due to absolutely astounding quality control in the factory, is stuck. See, when you turn the head, it's supposed to stay. As you can see, I'm very much so fighting this, and it slowly moves back. Because you see, well, the ball joint is stuck, and what I'm twisting there is the actual bar for the ball joint. So that means that I'm stressing the actual neck joint, and eventually, if I keep that up, it's going to break. Yeah, that means I'm going to have 2 broken striker Eurekas on my hand. Fantastic. But anyway, the shoulders attached to the body are on swivels, as you can see here, and there is a double hinge system working here in the actual shoulders that allow the shoulder pads to move up, and then the bicep can move by extension. The elbows are on hinges, as are the wrists, as you can see here, and the blades can easily come off. You just got to work them a little bit. They pop off. They're on pegs, so they swivel. Woo! Striker Eureka's waist is on a ball joint, so you'll be able to get it to rock back and forth a little bit and twist and turn. Again, it's very tight for me, and it was more so tight first out of the box because, well, you have to wake up the joints, so be careful with forcing that. Striker Eureka's hips are on a swivel hinge combo, as you would expect, though there's not too much range in them. So if you have a Series 2 striker, if you have it intact, and the second deployment striker, you'll pretty much be familiar with this. The knees are on a hinge, as you can see here, and the ankles are on ball joints. Woo! And here is a side-by-side comparison with the Series 2 Striker Eureka. And if you're wondering why my Striker Eureka has wider hips and a joint in the hip that is off-color, that's because mine was one of the lucky ones that came with the exploding hip feature, and NECA never got back to me about a replacement. Yay! So, side by side, as you can see here, and really, I think Striker does look very nice in black, but I don't know if I actually prefer it over the normal colors. Gonna have to maybe grow on me a little bit more, but I definitely love Striker in black. So, buy the set now, skip it, or wait for a sale. Overall, the main thing this set has going for it is the looks. All of the Jeagers look sweet and come in a bitchin' packaging, if it wasn't destroyed in transit. The glow-in-the-dark con pods are a nice touch, but sadly, my phone doesn't quite capture them well in the dark, as you can see here. Gypsy was the only one that showed through, but really in hand they look very nice in the dark. Sadly, though the articulation is identical to their accurate counterparts, all 3 Jeagers feel, well, say rubbery when moving, and they don't feel safe at all to move and handle like you would their normal counterparts. In addition to that, there's paint in the joints for mine, and I literally flaked off a bunch of it when first breaking the robots in. Kinda sad and kinda scary. Overall, as a super awesome exclusive action figure set, well, to me, it's not a great set to have displayed on the shelf out of the box. It feels fragile, and some of the joints you just might be afraid to move out of fear of breakage. When it's all said and done, the set, when it comes down to the looks, it's nice. So I'd recommend keeping them in a box if you want them. Otherwise, if you want to pose them, even the most die-hard Pacific Rim fan will probably be just fine without this set. A true SDCC exclusive. It's meant to be something nice and special in some way, and the average collector won't feel bad without it. I want to love this set so much, but the issues that it has, after this review, it's back in the box with a damaged slipcover.